Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. That's a special one for Brandon Rosenthal today, who makes fun of my little greetings. Brandon, if you tune in, hit me up. I'm going to have a laugh with you about that. But welcome, everybody, to Run It Back, episode number 53. I'm your host, Menelik Fernandez. Run It Back, the premise of the show remains the same. Basically, we take a game that has happened previously and we run it back, so to speak, where we talk about what preparation went into the game, what the process looked like, what we would change if anything, how we scouted the team, what in-game changes we made, all of that fun stuff that's kind of niche to coaching. And then of course, being episode number 53, since episode 6, we've been very fortunate to have coaches from the games in question join us. So today we're looking at NC Central versus Florida A&M. From NC Central's perspective, it's the March 4th, 2021 game, so fairly recent. We're recording on April 30th. And I mean, obviously a COVID year game, but we are very, very fortunate today to have Coach Nigel Thomas from NC Central join us. Nigel, if you give me a second, I'm going to try my best to do you justice with a little bit of a warm up here, a little bit of an intro. Nigel's been an assistant coach at NC Central since October of 2019. He prior to that, he was an assistant coach at NC Wesleyan for 5 years. He's been both a head coach and an assistant coach at his alma mater, which is Langston U. That period ran for about 6 years, which was 3 as the assistant and 3 as the head coach, where they produced 3 conference championships. And he was also, an assistant coach at Prairie State for 5 years. 4-year player as a point guard at his alma mater, as I mentioned. Nigel, I'm super, super happy to have you here. I'm really excited to run it back with you today, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Man, look, I appreciate the opportunity, man. This is kind of like before we started the recording, but this is a great platform. Just appreciative, honored that you would ask me to be on, what you're doing for this game, what you're doing for coaches, sharing the game, growing the game. Great platform, great opportunity. So looking forward to running it back.
Appreciate. I'm humbled. Thank you. The honor is truly mine. Let's talk a little bit first about the COVID season. You're one of, I think, only 2 coaches, no, 3 coaches, I believe, that I've spoken to about a game that has happened during this different year. Let's put it that way. So before we get into this specific game, I know that you guys played this team 4 times this season. You had all 4 of those scouts. And, certain teams had shutdowns, certain teams had games juggled, all that. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like as a coach and how that would affect your general preparation before we move into this specific scout for this game.
Yeah. So obviously this, COVID year was difficult for everybody, having to adjust, having to pivot. But that's what basketball is. That's what sports is. Got to adjust on the fly, got to adjust, got to just make it happen. So from our guys' perspective, it was kind of difficult just going day in, day out, not sure if we're going to be playing, if we're going to be practicing.
Right.
So trying to keep them engaged on things like that. So from a preparation standpoint, especially during conference play, when we're normally a Monday, Saturday conference opponents doing a normal year,
Right.
Playing back-to-back games was a little bit different. Playing, teams, because normally in our league, we have, 11, 12 teams, but now since we had to split it in half in 2 different divisions, you're playing same teams multiple times.
Right.
It kind of helped, but at the same time, it was a little bit, it was different. It was different, but, we all had to do it. We all had to adjust. So from a preparation standpoint, just day in and day out on it, seeing a team that much and having an opportunity to watch Florida A&M prior to our first game, I had a chance to watch them basically 10 times, and so
wow.
In a normal year when I would have other scouts, I was able to kind of just focus on them and kind of lock in on them. And our staff had, obviously we kind of broke it up in other ways with their scouts and stuff like that.
So perfect segue to what I want to ask next. Thank you. Appreciate. Let's talk about this specific game and the way that your staff breaks down scouts how are you preparing? Like, how many of these games are you watching? You mentioned you've seen this team several times. You actually played them the day before. What are you going through? What are you specifically looking at? And how is that all coming together for what you're giving your guys? And then with what you're giving your guys, having seen this team 4 times, do you give them much more on the
Yeah,
fourth time than you do on the third, than you do on the second?
great question. I'm very maniacal, very detailed, I guess anal, crazy about preparation, just because I think it's very important, because I want to make sure that I'm giving as much information to our staff as needed,
Right.
not overloading our players, because
Right.
obviously, the saying is, you make players think too much, the slower their feet are. But at least for me, I want to know everything about the team. So, preparing for these guys from the first time we played them, which was, what was the first time? If I keep continuing to look down, I'm a big time note taker. So I have plenty of notes by me. So I know a lot of guys get on here and they're able to remember stuff off the top of their head. But
No problem. To answer your question, it was February 8th and 9th
February
were the
8th.
first two. Yeah.
Yep. So February 8th and 9th. Before that, 7 games to watch them. I mean, they played in some high level games. Florida Gulf Coast, they played against Georgia, played against Georgia Tech, Georgia Tech, the eventual ACC conference champions, and played
Right.
them to a 10-point game. So I had several times to kind of watch them. And since we got shut down or postponed or games canceled before that, that would have been my scouts before, I was kind of able to kind of watch them all the way through. So from my preparation standpoint, I like to watch games all the way through, full games, even if it's a television copy, because there's a lot of information given, especially from commentators, about teams that I can take with and kind of jot down
Right.
and note. So me watching them against Georgia, for example, just seeing them, and it was kind of a common opponent because we played Georgia last year, so I was kind of familiar with their roster and their team
Right.
and how Tom Crean wants to play. Played them tough. Played them against Georgia Tech. Just watching them against them, and what Josh Pastner does with Georgia Tech, I was a little worried about us because we weren't going to have the same amount of experience as far as games are concerned,
Right.
based on Florida A&M. They weren't really shut down much. I think they had maybe 2 games postponed, so they were kind of in a groove. So we kind of had to make sure that from a preparation standpoint, I kind of had a chance to kind of break down everything for them, from the fact of what their lineups look like from game to game. Did they shorten their their lineups, their rotation? What were they running offensively? Did they do anything defensively as the games got closer to us? So it was a lot of deep diving for myself that I knew about. But when it was time to present to the staff, and especially to Coach Moten, he just wants to know, what actions do we need to be prepared for?
Right.
And personnel wise, that's probably the most important information he wants to give the players: personnel, tendencies. But when we're talking about, plays and all that, very minimal on that. And that's just coming down to, what we do defensively and kind of our standards and our habits.
Like it. I got a couple questions from what's in there. First, when you're talking about watching what you're watching, you mentioned even watching some of the games on TV because the commentary can be great, etc. When you're going through, do you watch an entire game in one sitting? Are you watching it and pausing it and making notes while you're going through it? What's your process for pulling out information? And like for me, I watch games on fast forward and I have to go through a couple times. Do you have to go through a couple times, go back and forth? Like what are you doing?
So, I mean, this right here, I know I hate when guys kind of put notes up, on Zoom, because you can't really read it. But this
Right.
is kind of like notes that I had when they played South Carolina. And
Okay.
so when they played South Carolina, I'm kind of keeping notes as the game is going on. I'm kind of just, drawing up sets
Mm-hmm.
about the game.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll watch it all the way through, and then I'll go back after the game is over. And, if I'm time stamping it, at certain spots, I can go back and look at it that way, replay it if I have to go back on Synergy and replay
Right.
it at that certain spot. But yeah, I'm watching it all the way through with the commentary on and jotting down notes on, little tidbits that, the commentators may say. Another thing I love to do is I love to listen to pregame interviews with the coach, if that's the
There.
day before, because they give you a lot of information. They may give you information about injuries or guys who may not be playing.
Right.
And then I listened to their post-game interviews from the previous game about what they should have done, what they did adjustment-wise, and I kind of keep that just in my back pocket. Not anything that I'm really going to share with our team, but just from my standpoint, just maybe some whatever it could be, but just little things about inside and out, just trying to know this team and just try to get a deep dive. So
It's interesting you say that, because I've actually had one guest prior say that he'll do the same thing. He'll watch the coaches, but it gives him kind of a sense of that coach's personality, and he almost feels like because of that, he's like, oh, this guy is a very bold personality. He's going to run something like this
right.
ATO or end of game or something like that. So that's
Yeah.
that's interesting. I love hearing that people do something like that. Now, the other question that I had was, you mentioned that you sort of shrink what you've done for both your staff and then for your guys. What would that look like? So you're going through everything, and as you're going through everything, you create sort of, I mean, I've seen your notes. For anybody who doesn't know, Nigel is not only an extensive note taker, but a great note taker, very detail oriented, and willing to share them, which I think is awesome. But you shrink what you're presenting to your coaching staff, and then from there, you're taking stuff out and giving it to your guys. What do both look like?
Yeah. I'm blessed to work on a staff that has guys that worked in this league. So Reggie Sharp, other assistant coach who's been in this league for, at least been at Central for 5 years, but was at Florida A&M before as an assistant. So he's familiar with the league. Obviously, Coach Moden's familiar with the league for being here for 12 years. He knows the MEAC inside and out. Right. Brian Graves, who just recently took an assistant position at Western Carolina, he's familiar with the league because he's been in it. So if the coaching hasn't changed, coaches, you kind of know their style of play. So it's not really a lot to give to the coaching staff.
Right.
It's more so sets that I'm talking to the coaching staff about, because we probably need to talk about how we're going to defend certain actions.
Right.
We probably need to talk about who are we going to involve in ball screen situations? What's our ball screen coverage against, the team? But when it comes to the players, our players, we're just talking basic personnel tendencies, what guys want to do, what we need to take away from them, who we need to force. And we'll talk about this later on if we want to get into it. But our main thing for us is really, we're big on closeouts. And so our closeouts and how we influence the ball on guys is so critical. So I know everybody has these analogies, but we talk about, Rondos, we talk about Wade, and we talk about Curry. So we'll break down guys personnel wise for opponents. If he's left with a Rondo, obviously he's a non-shooter, but we're going to influence him left. And so we want to have all our guys, entire team, locked in on every player, because for us, we switch 1 through 5 late shot clock.
Okay.
So it's going to be extremely critical for even our 5-man to know what their point guard wants to do late shot clock. If he's left with a Wade, obviously he's a shooter, driver, can pull up in the mid-range, we influence him left. Our 5-man needs to know that. So we're really big on closeouts, which way we're influencing the ball, and on what guy. So our main thing, really, what we're giving the players is just tendencies for players.
And would that look like, I'm sorry to jump in, Nigel, would that look like a paper copy, or would that look like a short bit of film for each guy, or is it a combination? What are they getting delivered there?
Yeah. So from a prep standpoint, I'm just thinking about, our March 4th game. Obviously, we played March 3rd and March 4th.
Right.
So March 1st, so 2-day prep, to get prepared for the first game. That first day, we're only showing just 3 clips on each guy.
Right.
As personnel, because we don't want to give them too much. Obviously, we know attention span is very short for guys. So what I would do is I would put a short edit together, 3 or 4 clips for each player. And when I say each player, I probably only go as deep as 8 players. Their top 8 guys, 5 starters, 3 reserves, 3 clips. And I'm not going to really replay them. Each clip, I kind of just go through, but talk it through. And I only want to be in the film room, this film room right here, matter of fact, for 8 minutes, 8 to 9 minutes, show the edit, talk about it. So now it kind of jumpstarts their thinking, and talk about which way we're going to influence them, how we're going to close out. what their tendencies are. But for that 2 day, beforehand, we'll talk personnel, but we're still focusing on what we're going to do, what we want to do.
Right.
And we won't talk about actually Florida A&M until that next day and then the day of. So, and that will be like game day shoot around. We'll really get a deep dive into actions, 3 or 4 different actions, how we're going to guard it, so.
And you'll do a walkthrough at that point, sort of on the floor, where it's like, hey, let's say I don't know, like we're swing, stagger away. This is how we want to guard that. So, swing, this is what we want. We're going through, we're locking and trailing, whatever. Like when he catches here, this is what we want out of it type deal.
Right. So the day before the game, end of practice, you've gone through at this time of the year, you're probably, in March, you're probably hour and 15, no longer than an hour and a half on the floor. But that last 15 minutes of practice is on the floor, scout team, guys come out, walk through the action, talk about how we're going to guard it, and then it's full speed on how we're going to guard the action. And then what we do is we'll have guys guard their guy that they're doing in a matchup, then we'll switch a spot because we want guys, each
Right.
guy know how to guard. If we're doing a staggered, are we locking and trailing? Are we, we're caboosing, whatever, or are we going to shoot the gap? So like in particular for this game here, MJ Randolph, number 3 for Florida A&M, we didn't really have to lock and trail because he's really a non-shooter. So we could shoot the gap on a double stack if we had to, but we'll just talk about those things. But we'll go through 3 or 4 actions. We'll do baseline OB, sideline OB, but no longer than 15 minutes, but everybody has to guard it. So our scout team will flip with our starters, and then now they have to guard it as well. So we're going to want everybody to be engaged, but we're really about pace, really about, quickness. And at the end of the day, it's our habits. So we can talk about how we're going to guard different things, but we don't have to get specific on it because we do what we do. You jump to the ball, lock and trail, high hand closeouts. So, at the end of the day, it comes down to your habits and what you do.
I like it. You seem like, so I've, after doing this for a little bit, I kind of categorize teams in my mind as like, we're a do what we do type team, versus and it's a spectrum, obviously. And at the other end of the spectrum is like, we completely adapt to every team we play. And I'd say you're probably a little bit closer to doing what we do as a team type deal. Couple questions come up from everything you've described. First, are you doing anything like depth charts for yourself where players know what points of the game they're coming in? Are your rotations sort of scripted? Like you mentioned, you switch 1 through 5 and everybody is expected to prepare for everybody 1 through 8 on the other team. But do players kind of have a sense like, if I'm coming in at this point, I'm probably matching up with Nigel because that's who's going to be on the floor? Like, is it that in detail, or is it a little bit more by feel, touch as to what's going on in the game?
It's really more by feel. If you go back to our box scores, I think we had 4 different lineups in the 4 games that we played. So the second game that we played down at their place, so the 2 games back in February, we kind of had a situation where we had a starting 5 the first night. Second night, we were going to start the same 5, but 2 of our starters had flu-like symptoms before the game. And, they couldn't play because of COVID protocol or whatever. So now you're throwing in a 9th guy for us who wasn't really expected to play depth chart wise. And it kind of threw things off, but that's why we, you stay ready so you don't have to get ready type of deal. But we don't talk depth chart. We didn't really have a set rotation at that time of the year because of our pauses, and we didn't really have a continuity lineup wise, but we kind of knew, all our guys knew based on them, their rotation was pretty set at that time. I mean, they were in a flow. And so all our guys knew what they had to do and who they're going to be matched up with. So how we play, our thing is we try to deny everything the first 15 seconds of the shot clock. We try to blow things up, so we don't allow them. We don't like elbow catches. We don't like wing catches. And our thinking is by the time it gets to 12 on the shot clock, we're switching 1 through 5 anyway. So if we can just blow up the initial action, we're not really guarding action. We're not really guarding staggers. We're not guarding pin downs, cross screens, whatever, flares, because we're trying to blow everything up. And so if
Right.
we're taking them out their initial offense and initial sets, by the time it gets to 12 on the shot clock, we're switching 1 through 5. Now you're guarding personnel. So that's kind of what we're trying to do.
Going back a few minutes, there was something else that kind of popped up in my mind as a question. You mentioned that like you're really big on closeouts. I actually really think of Ryan Pannone had a seminar this summer where he spoke on high level basketball is played through closeouts. So that's really sort of stayed with me since hearing that. What do you do with particular individuals if you can't? I have to structure this properly. If you can't force them into what your system does typically, how do you approach those individuals that you have to close differently? Does that make sense in terms of what I'm trying to, like, if you are, let's say if you're a sideline baseline team and you're influencing all your closeout sideline baseline, but there's one particular player that it's like that's not going to work because of XYZ reason.
Right.
How do you approach individuals or situations like that? And does that happen often or not at all?
It does. So like for instance, kind of their best player, MJ Randolph, number 3 for them,
Right.
all conference performer, is a heavy right hand driver, but we're trying to influence him left.
Right.
And he's on the right side of the floor. We're influencing him left, but we're not giving direct line drives. We're trying to eliminate paint touch, but we're heavy gap. We're heavy gap protection. So we're just really talking to our guys. And Coach Moten is really big on us as assistants to be extremely active on the bench as much as we can be when it's our scout.
Love that.
Because until the referee tells us to sit down as assistants, I'm kind of talking our guys through every action anyway, just trying to keep them engaged.
Right.
And what I preach to the guys on the bench is for their engagement, they need to be talking to the guys on the floor as well. So, if the guy, especially close to our bench, and if they're on the right side of the floor and we're trying to say, hey, send them left, left with a rondo, then our guys on the bench is echoing the same thing. So now you get, and especially it's so much bigger now with no crowd during the pandemic.
Right.
Your bench energy is so
It's
important.
everything.
It's everything. And so we're really big on our guys, it keeps them engaged, but for us to echo that and have our guys on the floor, but then you got to tell, hey, heavy nail protect, be in the gap, T in the gap. And so, obviously we got to close differently on certain guys, especially on certain sides of the floor, but it's just all about communication, but it's all about triggering. That's why the closeouts are so important. And we're preaching that during pregame shoot around. We're preaching that in film and sending reminders. And this kind of goes back to your previous question. Night before games, I'll send particular edits, individual edits to guys to their phone on the guy that they are most likely going to be matched up with. And so
that's awesome to me.
It's just a reminder for guys, hey, just watch his tendencies. It won't be, it's probably a 3 or 4 minute edit, just showing that guy what he really likes to do and the guy that's guarding. And these guys ask for it. I mean, I think that's one thing that's big about our team. Our guys are always asking for short edits for the guy that they're probably most likely going to be matched up for the majority of the game. And so having that prepped and ready to go for those guys, for them to look at is just a quick reminder. And it's just quick reminders on the bench during timeouts, especially when they're subbing in. Hey, who are you going in for? All right, what's your matchup? Who do you have? Hey, right with a Curry. You got to run them off the line, make them put the ball on the floor, send them right. And so it's just constant communication and constant emphasis.
So Mike DK, who's at Elite Academy in Belgium, says a quote to challenge: if you prepare your team for a game, do you need to coach heavily during the game? I.e., the perfect game would be as a coach when you don't have to say anything because you've prepared them so well.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree that that's a quote to challenge. I think in the real world, unfortunately, we do have to remind our guys a lot of the time about certain things that happen in prep.
Yeah.
Can we go from general to specific a little bit?
Absolutely.
You played this team 3 times prior. What, if any, changes are you putting in for the 4th time? What have you identified as your strengths and weaknesses? And I will mention, for the sake of the show, the previous 3 games were losses, and this one was a win. So there were obviously corrections that have gone in there or different things that were said. what did you identify as the keys to the game? I hate using that phrase, but I mean, that's basically what we're getting at. What were the things that you were looking at attacking the most?
Yeah. I think the three previous games, especially the two down at their place, our energy and our effort were number one,
Right.
especially on the defensive end of the floor. So I think that's the first thing you have to correct. And I don't know if that guys would agree with that, but I think that's a correctable thing. And that it kind of correlates or translates into the lineup change that we had, because we were thinking that in order for us to have a good start, we needed high energy guys on the floor. And
Right.
that meant sacrificing some of our offense. And what's happened was our leading scorer, CJ Kaiser, we didn't start, who started previously down at their place, not because CJ's a bad defender,
Right.
only because there was a guy, a freshman, Justin Wright, who just brought the intensity and the energy that we needed to get jump started. Because, coming out down 2-7 early on, you can't do that against good teams. You're constantly fighting back. You're losing momentum. You don't have the energy. So our energy and effort was number one. Keeping these guys out of transition was definitely important. Keeping them off offensive glass, giving them second chance opportunities we had to eliminate. We thought because they switched everything that we had to run some things to kind of negate that. And what we didn't want to do was make this a one-on-one game, because they loaded up. They kind of take away penetration. So our thing was, if we can get the ball from to the third side, ball reversal, ball movement, player movement, that
Yeah.
works in our favor. And for us to get out in transition, because they weren't really elite in defensive transition. So our thing was, we had to get stops. We had to, one shot and out, look to push, and try to get easy scoring opportunities. And so that simple keys, I don't think it was anything specific. We did kind of want to establish some inside presence early if they were going to switch. So, little on big, we kind of wanted to get the
Yeah.
ball inside. And it didn't help with the second game down there when we had our two best bigs out, because we didn't have that. So with those guys being back once they came here to us on March 3rd and 4th, we kind of wanted to establish that early. So our inside game, but we kind of wanted to get the ball side to side and kind of keep them in rotation if possible.
I want to ask you to elaborate on one for me out of all those points, if you don't mind. The keeping them out of transition. What were sort of the actionable items that you gave your guys to help prevent that from happening? That's one that, as a coach, I often mention. There's certain coaches in this call for sure that have heard me talk about it with them. But like, I feel of the four phases of the game: offensive transition, defensive transition, offensive half court, defensive half court. I'm probably the weakest as a coach in defensive transition. So, what were you doing to try and prevent them from busting out? Were you changing your shot selection? Were you changing, your matchup points? What kinds of things were actionable for you?
Yeah. Our shot quality, it was number one for us.
Right.
I think the one pass shot, which Coach Moten just dreads, unless it's just a clear, corner three or layup at the rim, that is going to be bad for us, because first pass shot is going to mess up our defensive balance, especially in transition, was going to give them opportunities on the other end. So that was number one. I would say we wanted to jam the basketball. So our main thing was, and when we talk about jamming the basketball, we want our point guard to always find their point guard as soon as the shot goes up, to jam
Okay.
it, to make sure there's no easy outlets, kind of push them to kind of slow things up. And then we didn't want any hit aheads, any quick strikes, or anything, because they like to get out, run lane lines, run, sprint out. We want to take any hit aheads away and kind of deny up the floor kickouts, and
Right.
kind of deny that and kind of find their wings. So shot selection, number one, jam the basketball, number two, take away hit aheads, number three, if that kind of works.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you. When you're jamming the basketball, are you teaching your guys to try and turn? Are you teaching them to try and keep them on the outside thirds? What are sort of the key teaching points that you give in there?
Turning them would be ideal, just to kind of slow things up. But if we can just keep them on that third and just kind of keep them close to the sidelines, so they're not getting to the middle of the floor, and now they can, cross the floor and try to get kickouts and driving kick opportunities in transition, that's a good thing. But to just try to slow them up so they can't get out and look to push or hit aheads to them, or, pitch aheads to rim runners. That's kind of our main thing. So we really don't have any, precise rules on that. Just jam it, get it up, slow it up, give our guys a chance to get back and get matched, against their guys.
Love it. In terms of being the assistant who's done the scout, once you're in game, what are you tracking? What's important to you from the box score? How frequently are you making adjustments to the game plan based upon things that you're seeing?
So if it's our scout, we're putting things on the board pregame, and we're, 30 minutes are on the clock. We bring our guys back 35-minute mark.
Yep.
We'll talk for about 10 minutes. Coach will come in and talk, but I'm just reviewing personnel, where we're closing out, offensive keys, defensive keys, pep talk, all that. When it comes to in-game, what I'm tracking individually is wars. And when I talk about wars, we talk about the 4-minute wars, especially, college, you got the media timeouts. It's at the 16-minute mark, 12-minute mark,
Right.
8-minute mark, 4-minute mark. Our goal is to try to win each war. And so, I'm tracking.
We call this the game within the game.
Game within the game. So it's
Yeah.
4-minute games. Where are we at that 4-minute, in that 4-minute game? Did we win it? And what I'm tracking is, did we win that 4-minute war? And what I'm writing down during each timeout is the key things that Coach Moden has told the team or individual player. So I'm writing that on my notes just as a reminder, post game or even halftime, about, hey, what did Coach tell this particular guy? What did he tell our team? Did we execute that going into the next war? Was there any adjustments that, he was thinking in game, just to have that to talk about with the staff, halftime or even post game, to get, prepared for the next one. So besides the timeouts, team fouls for our team and opponents, I'm keeping track of the wars, and I'm keeping track of notes, of things that coaches said to the team and individuals.
Love it. And then it's, as far as the box score goes, is there anything that's really of importance to you from that? Or do you feel, I find that a lot of coaches, especially with the amount of experience that you have, it's like, okay, yeah, but I had a pretty good feeling of that anyways. So like, are there things that really stand out to you that are useful to you in a box score? Or are you more just kind of, this is something that I've noticed we need to fix that. I don't need the exact numbers, so to speak.
I mean, we're looking at all the normal things, turnovers. We're looking at how many times did we get to the line? How many times did we get to the line? We're looking at defensive field goal percentage. Because we're trying to keep our opponents 40 or below.
Okay.
And so we're looking at offensive rebounds, how many second chance points, how many points off of turnovers do they have? So, if we turned it over, are they converting in transition? So those are kind of the things. We don't really get into a lot of numbers and a lot of stats, just those, I guess, simple elementary things that we're looking at. But you can basically tell turnovers, defensive field goal percentage, and the foul line is going to kind of tell you if you're winning or losing the game at that point.
Right. So you're up 1 at the half in this game. You guys go back and you're talking to your team. What does that process look like? I'm sure you probably have some sort of meeting amongst the coaches. What are you talking about? And then what are you conveying to your guys? What's actionable?
Yep. So 15-minute halftime, collegiate level. We're giving 5 minutes to our guys to kind of get their composure, talk amongst themselves, and we're talking amongst the staff. We're looking at the stat sheet of those things I was just talking about. And at this particular game, we felt that our pace and at the pace we were moving offensively was going to be key for us. And the fact, if we can just paint protect, keep these guys out of the paint and no second chance opportunities. So it was nothing complex at all.
Right.
But we just couldn't give them second chance opportunities because, Bryce Meringue, who's a high motor 4-man for them, good player, but we felt like if he kept killing us to second chance opportunities and getting to loose balls, that wasn't going to be good for us. first pass shots for us wasn't going to be good. We felt like ball movement was going to be key. It was going to be critical. And trying to get out in transition and push when those opportunities were there were going to be key. But our thing was we couldn't play against 5-on-5. Like we couldn't continue to take the ball out of the net and not get stops and play against their set D because of how they switched, because how they load up. And what we didn't want to do was just have guys, if they're switching everything, then we get stagnant. Now, next thing you know, we're playing one-on-one late shot clock and we're taking deep shots because that's just playing right into their hands.
Right. And I have two more before I get into a little bit of film. And if any coaches have any questions, obviously feel free. What's your overall viewpoint on pace for your team? And I mean, you've obviously touched on it a little bit as to what you wanted to play in this specific game, but like, are you guys kind of, again, a spectrum? Are you more at the end of the spectrum where we're always going to play at the type of pace that we want to play, or do you adjust it for certain teams? And then what specifically did you do with Florida A&M?
Pace is talked about pre-game, pre-opponent, just based on how fast they want to play, particularly for this year, because of the pause and because of games. We weren't in the best shape. We weren't in the best shape that Coach Moulton wants this team to be. So playing fast like we normally have in the past probably wasn't to our advantage.
Right.
And so we kind of wanted to control the pace. Florida A&M likes to get on the transition. They're looking to get quick shots. So are we a walk it up the floor? I wouldn't say that. But if we don't have a clear advantage, we want to run offense. We thought after 10 seconds on the shot clock, they were going to gamble defensively.
Right.
We thought first pass, one side was playing into their hands. So if we had to play against 5-on-5, getting the ball to the third and fourth side was going to be key for us. But when we have the chance to run, we should do so. In a normal year with the depth of playing 8 to 9 guys, 10 guys maybe for us, yeah, we're trying to get up and down. We're trying to push the pace. But because of this year, because of how things went, and because of the way Florida A&M plays, we just thought we needed to control pace for us. And going up and down probably wasn't going to, fail well in our favor.
Right. And then my last question, and this is one that I've kind of added throughout time, is that are you doing anything? I know that you're a very good note taker, as I mentioned before. Are you doing anything that's like a post-game review? And what does that look like? Is that film? Is that notes? Do you deliver it to your other coaches? Is it only for yourself? Do you deliver it to your guys? And then the last third part of this question, sorry, is just obviously you played them the day before. So when you're going home, looking at that loss and deciding what am I going to do or change for tomorrow, was there anything that you noticed specifically from game 3 to game 4 from that process that you were like, I need to throw this in type deal?
Yeah. So the notes that I was talking about in game, try to go back and look at those and try to apply it. We do post-game edits every game. And so those post-game edits looks like maybe 15 clips, and we call it good, bad, and ugly.
Right.
And so we'll show the good, we'll show some bad, and that's offensively and defensively. And then we'll show ugly. I don't necessarily like to end the film session on ugly clips, just to keep our guys in a positive mind frame, try to end it on something good before we walk out of the film room. But so we'll show that the next day. So we played March 3rd, but then we had an 8 a.m. shoot around the next day. It was a night game, so I think it was an 8 o'clock, 7 to 8 o'clock game, but we had shoot around at 8 the next morning. Because it was a back-to-back, and plus we were playing within a 24-hour span, we didn't necessarily think we had to get on the floor with our guys. It was more of a mental deal. So we'll show them the edit, good, bad, ugly, end it on a good, go on the floor and just make any type of wrinkle. And so Coach Moulton does a good job of putting play packages together for particular guys to exploit matchups or exploit things based on the ball screen coverage of another team. So he can kind of determine a play package based on the coverage of a team that he's going to see consistently. So we may run something that involves a ball screen early on in the game, and just based off of how they're covered, if they're going to ice it, if they're going to soft hedge it, if they're going to, if they're going to switch it, then there's a play package specifically for that. And so for us, we kind of saw that they were going under on all ball screens, especially on our guards. And so we kind of had to change the angle of our screen, which we talked about the next day in shoot around, and just talk about the location of the ball screen, what we're going to do. So there wasn't a fast-paced shoot around. It was more so of a walkthrough, but video. And it was just more so just trying to keep our guys positive, like, hey, we got to bounce back. Like, a lot of guys came in with the thought, like, man, we really blew that one last night. Well, that's over with. We got to move on to the next play.
Sure.
And so that's kind of how we do that.
I just want to take a second and tip my hat off to all varsity athletes. I always talk about this as a head coach up here. I have tremendous respect for everything that varsity athletes do, because just like Coach Thomas said right now, and it's the same at the pro level too, right? I mean, you're talking about a back-to-back, 2 games within 24 hours, and you're a student, and you got to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning after playing at 8 or 9 o'clock at night and not getting a whole bunch of sleep. And then you got to go through practice and you got to watch film in order to play again. It's stressful. It's psychologically taxing. I want to tip my hat to all of you guys and ladies that do it, because I just have so much respect. It's often why, in my opinion, so many athletes go on to be so successful in other things. That being said, I'm going to jump into a little bit of film here, unless anybody has any questions for Coach Thomas. Are you good with the size of that? Can you see what's going on here?
I'm good if you're good.
I'm good. I just want to keep my notes on the side there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, basically, as I mentioned prior, I'll play each clip 3 times, once so that everybody can see what's going on. Then once I'll go through it, do my best, try and describe what's happened, and sort of like why I've pulled this clip to ask you about it. And then third time, obviously, all you, sir.
Yep.
So this is the first play of the game here, and we'll just watch and let it go through. This is you guys on offense. And I mean, God bless the 30-second shot clock. You guys, I'm telling you. All right, so let me go back a little bit, go through it. So, I mean, basically, we come up the floor. We start with a handoff action. Swing it into the corner. We get a low ball screen. Again, we swing it around. Low ball screen on the second side. Continue with the swing action. Reject. Pop in behind. 3-point shot. First play of the game. What were you guys hoping to achieve? What were you looking for? And talk to me a little bit, and I'll ask this question a few times through the clips, but talk to me a little bit about your play after the play, so to speak, in terms of if your primary action doesn't work, what are you guys teaching your guys?
Yeah. So handoff. We just try to get some continuity. And I think it goes back to what I was saying early on. Like, for them in particular, getting the ball to the third, fourth side, getting them in rotation was going to be so key for us. We just want to try to create some movement, So with Jordan Perkins here, rejecting the ball screen, great penetrator, second all-time leading assist. But Jonathan Maxwell, who's a stretch 4, left-handed kid, we'll take that shot from him anytime, 9 times out of 10. So we thought that was a good look. We just wanted to, create some movement, just try to see how they were going to guard certain action. Mm-hmm. And but we'll take that shot from him anytime. And so offensive rebound opportunity here. We thought if we can get second and third opportunities, that kind of works in our favor, because we thought that they were probably going to give up intensity wise with their defense. And so we're just trying to score.
Were you guys able, like when you watched this set going through, were you able to ascertain anything about coverages that you didn't anticipate coming into the game? Do you run these kinds of things to be like, hey, look, they're going under, or hey, look, on the reject, they weren't where they were supposed to be with their help type deal? Like, anything specifically stand out to you, or that you're looking for, so to speak?
Yeah. So we thought, especially with the lineup that they had on the floor, that they were going to switch 1 through 5. And obviously with the handoffs, they're switching it. And so with DJ Jones, the left-handed, the kid with the fro, we thought that was going to be an automatic switch, which then was going to have Maxwell allowed to post on the guard 23, but he kind of stayed home. But even on the reject, See, right there, we weren't sure, if he was just going to help. Was he trying to ice it? Because their coverage, they'll switch it up. So we weren't sure if he was going to ice it. But I thought it was a good read. I think Jordan Perkins, who's left-handed anyway, going downhill with his left hand, he's going to make the proper read. And just for the throwback pass right there, we'll take that. So we were just trying to see how they were going to guard. They were going to switch 1 through 5 and what they were going to do, especially on ball screen situation, where we were going to have an advantage with a little on a big, and we wanted to kind of obviously, take advantage of that early and get the ball inside.
When you run a set like this and you're looking for second, third side, so to speak, do you teach your guys to ignore the first option, ignore the set? Like, are they told in their mind, like, unless it's really there, you're really trying to get second, third, fourth side?
Yeah, what our guys love to do, and I don't know why, they love to reject the ball screen on the first side. And obviously there's times and opportunities to do that, but we want to see how they're going to guard it. And so
Right.
on reject, that's not giving us a clear understanding as a staff, especially with Coach Moden, because he wants to know, hey, what play package do I need to put together? But if you got to use the ball screen, obviously, to see how they're going to defend it,
For sure.
and that kind of gives us a chance to, for him to kind of move forward mentally on a play card. So just getting the ball to second, third side, like I said, if we can get them to start gambling after 15 seconds, we thought that was going to play in our favor. Like, they're going to be solid for the first 10, 10 seconds. But we thought, honestly, they were going to break down, gamble, allow penetration, and just trying to keep them in rotation afterwards.
That'll be good luck on your call there.
Good luck, LB.
So we're moving into one bit of a defensive breakdown here, I suppose. But what really kind of caught my attention was the desire. 3 minutes into the game, you talk about games within the game, scores 3-2, you're down 1 point.
Mm-hmm.
The desire to put on or try a bit of a press at this point, full court pressure. Maybe talk me through some of your teaching points, what you guys were looking to do. And, just like not being married to the result, obviously, what you thought in terms of your rotations, et cetera. So for anybody listening, it's a sideline out of bounds in the back court. There's an entrance pass, and there's a double in the center of the floor. It's a throw over the top to the basically the volleyball line, let's say. Headband it up the side, and then they end up getting in behind and get a dunk out of it. So what were you guys' thoughts? Obviously don't love the outcome, but what about the process, and did it then influence the decision as to how much pressure you could continue to put on and for how long?
Right. So at the early on in this call, I talked about the adjustment of putting number 2 for us, Justin Wright, in the game, freshman, just because of his defensive intensity, how hard he plays and how hard he competes. Kind of our thinking was Cam Reeves for them, who's a senior guard. He's the guy who's going to receive the ball right now.
Mm-hmm.
Our thing was to keep the ball out of his hands. He kind of runs the show. He's the head of the snake. We kind of wanted him to give it up. We thought that if we trap him and make him give it up and not allow him to get it back. But we hadn't really practiced this. This was kind of like a throw in, trying to change up the pace, make him give it up. So our rotation back, especially on the back line, wasn't correct. We kind of wanted to give it up and try to just get back and match up. So it wasn't supposed to be a continuous trap. So we're here trying to trap in the middle floor. We give it up. Right now we should be in retreat mode, but Jonathan Maxwell kind of gambled 23, gambled, came up. He should have been back to protect. And we were just going to be 5-on-5 and try to deny Cam Reeves, number 2, who initially caught the ball at the sideline OB, and kind of play out of that. So it was a breakdown, poor communication for us, how we were going to rotate out of it. So I kind of put that on me, on us. But we kind of just wanted to change the pace. We thought that full court pressure was going to try to take them out. We didn't want Cam Reeves to kind of bring the ball up, be comfortable initiating offense, make him give it up, and make somebody else make a decision.
So when you're sitting on the side and you watch all of this, do you then say, all right, we can't do that at all? We have to save that for later to try it again. What's sort of your response in terms of the coaching correction that you're making in your mind as to what you're going to do with the pressure?
Yeah. Because it worked the day before, because our pressure early on the day before was good for us, especially early on in the game, it kind of it kind of jump started us and initiated the energy and enthusiasm that we needed. We kind of wanted to do that again. And so even though it was a breakdown there, I don't think just because one breakdown, you should just do away with it, but there has to be some, better communication on what the rotation is on the backside. So that may be something I jot down during the game, especially at that point. So at the 16:56 mark of the first half, bad rotation out of our 2-2-1. Hey, Maxwell, this is what you have to do back here on the backside. So when every time he comes out, at least he knows. We'll kind of reiterate it, or if that's something I need to talk to him about halftime wise. But these guys did a tremendous job adjusting on the fly. I mean, just
Right.
What we did and what we asked them to do, these guys tried to do it to the best of their ability. It was just a breakdown on that possession.
Do you, I mean, you sort of answered this already, but do you typically press for time, or do you do a combination? Sometimes you're pressing for pressure and trying to steal the ball. Sometimes you're pressing, just to kind of slow them up, get them out of their normal action, maybe blow up something or something to that effect.
Yep. I would say 80% of the time is for time. If we're full court pressure, 3/4 court pressing, not aggressively trapping, just trying to slow them up. And then, like I said before, once they get it across half court, now let's say it's at 22 seconds. Now we're denying everything, no wing entries, no elbow catches. So now we've done that. So now we're probably we're at 14. Once the clock gets to 12 and below, we're switching 1 through 5 anyway. And so now it's just going back to what I said before, guarding personnel. So, hey, let's slow them up in the backcourt, especially for a team that likes to get out and run. Or it could be, if we're going to press aggressively, it's maybe because we're trying to get the ball out of playmakers' hands and then allowing somebody else to initiate offense, but not allowing that point guard to get it back. It all depends on personnel, but I would say 80% of the time it's just to slow them up, buy time off the clock, deny entries, blow up the initial action, and then 12 seconds or below on the shot clock with guarding personnel because we're switching 1 through 5.
Love it. Next one is a horn set that I like. A lot of teams actually run this up here in my conference. We call this horns traffic a lot of the time because there's a traffic screen or a rub screen that happens. But again, I will talk through it on the second time. Just let it go through, let everybody take a look at it, end up with a pretty good shot out of it. So, I mean, we walk it up in the center of the floor. We enter it to the right forward or the offensive right forward. The point guard comes down and then just sort of stops right in the nail region. And there's this rub screen. Oftentimes you can get an entry to the post out of that. At the same time that happens, the wing on the ball side is clearing out. Excuse me, losing my ability to control here. Let me back it up. Sorry. So we're right about here. The ball side wing clears out and then sets a back screen for the other side wing, who is coming out off of another pin down and got a wide open look out of it. Talk to me about options, execution, frequency of running it, when you install it in the season, and why it ends up making the package for this particular team that you're playing. All of that stuff.
First thing is Justin Watley, number 13 for us, has to do a better job at catching the ball at the elbow. So we knew that they were heavy at denying elbow catches. So just where they're going to start their action and start stance-wise, they were going to have to kind of go down to the first hash mark and kind of work their way up and hold the guy off. What this, all this action is doing is just, multiple actions to get the best shot available. So it's not really looking for anything in particular, but we want to see how they were going to switch, if they were going to switch. And so now, even with this little rub screen right there, was there going to be a switch, on the 1 on the 5? So now 20, but he stayed home. But now with this little going underneath with the back screen wide open, maybe there was supposed to be a switch, but because Jalen Spear, number 1, fell on the ground, there was some confusion. Bryce Meringue, number 23, guy with the left arm sleeve, was going to jump out, but he stayed home. Late contest. We'll take the open shot. So basically, it's just fluff, we call it fluff or, bluff action, but we're just trying to get a good shot opportunity. And now we were just going to see how they were going to guard certain things. This is a play that, coach has had in his play package for a couple of years. But it was just to get an open opportunity. But once again, it's just, he loves to run multiple action stuff. But that elbow catch, first of all, should have been at the elbow. It kind of pushed us out. So we didn't get a clear catch there. Good screen by Perkins, and then Justin Wright, who, that's his shot, 45 shot.
We'll live with that any day of the week.
We'll live with that any day of the week, correct.
Question for you. On the rub screen, the traffic screen that happens, you mentioned it's 1-5. So right about here. Number 2 is going to come through, and you got the back screen. That's ultimately your shooter on the second side.
Right.
Does that cut not happen with a post entry, or does it still happen? How are you teaching your guys to play off of each other? You mentioned that it's not a specific action, just for him to get the shot. Right. And you're looking for best available. If best available is throw it into the 5 there, number 23 on the block.
Yep.
What's happening with number 2? How is he reading off of it?
Yep. So now, if you just pause it right there, bring it back to when 12 catches the ball right there. Okay. So I think Justin Wright, number 2, was just a little bit too early on his cut, honestly, because we're trying to see 23, Jonathan Maxwell, who's one of our better inside scorers. If number 3 Randolph for them was going to switch that now and kind of stay home, we're kind of looking for the high-low opportunity to try to post him. So that's what we're trying to do. But because number 2, Justin Wright, goes early on that baseline cut, it kind of jams things up. But there was confusion on how they were guarding their action, and that's where the little slip fall. And matter of fact, that's Cameron Reeves who falls number 2 for them. He falls on the ground. But if Justin Wright kind of slows a little bit and holds a little bit earlier, we may have been able to get number 12 to throw the ball into 23 for a high-low, because he would have had a guard on him. And that's kind of what we want to do. We kind of want to establish that inside presence early, especially if they're going to switch that action down there.
I actually believe for a second, right about here, you had it.
Yeah. And so we didn't really explore it. And, sometimes, and we talk about that, our timing, because we spend so much on offensive sets in practice, especially about pace, timing. And we do a lot of 5-on-0, and we'll do it 5-on-5 in the half court just to get, work on our execution, our timing. Sometimes, guys get too sped up. They don't really explore all things. And we always tell guys, look, shot, dump down, reverse. That's kind of our progression anytime you catch the ball, especially on sets where we have a post player who's looking to get the ball inside. We always say, hey, look, shot, look, dump down, then look, reverse. But Perkins here was already had it in his mind, I think, to look reverse and swing it to Justin Wright.
Like it. This one was another set of yours that I like. I'll let it play through, but I'll sort of talk at the same time. What I liked about this is the original alignment, where it's almost like the Spain double screen or a stack setup, but then it doesn't end up being that at all. It ends up being a double towards the corner. End up with a good shot, make it in this one. Basically what we got is we walk up the floor and we're handing off to the offensive right side. You got player just above the nail, player just below the 3-point line. We get a push out on the offensive left side, a double screen on that ball handler. So now you've created a double side on what is currently the weak side, but will become the strong side as he moves in. And you've got a roll and a snap back or a crack back or a shake action in behind. You hit the shake, look to punch the ball, throw it into the post, don't have it, swing, swing. So now we're getting to, again, play after the play type deal that I wanted to ask you about. You get a ball screen on the one side, another ball screen, and then ends up wide open on the swing pass for the open 3. So talk to me about what you see, execution, the set, play after the play, all that fun stuff.
Right. So initially with this high stack with the 2 guys here, pause it right there. If you could just go back just to right there. What we're trying to do is trying to lift everybody higher at the free throw line, because what we're trying to do, we knew they like to overplay and deny wing entries. So number 5, Devin Palmer for us is taking the ball to the left side, but CJ Kaiser, number 22, super athletic, is just trying to set his man up for a backdoor because obviously they don't have any help at the rim, no backside. So we're trying to explore the backdoor first, and then you can play it now. Doesn't get that, they jump, they know it, they see it, and now we're trying to see how they're going to guard this double screen action or double drag, but it's not really a double drag. We kind of just stack it. And so we're going to roll one, pop another. Number 21 for them kind of commits to the ball, and he kind of drags it out with Devin Palmer. I think it's a good throwback on the shake action to Nick Fennell. And I think right here, this is kind of what we wanted. We wanted to kind of establish the inside, like I said before. And I think he's missing this post entry. I don't think, having Justin Watley right here, he's showing his target. He's showing Nick that, he wants the ball. We don't give it
Nigel,
to him.
can I interrupt you for a second? And I'm sorry to do so.
Go ahead.
Do you find that the post entry is a disappearing art?
I think so, because we've gone so perimeter oriented in our game that post feeding has kind of and how many traditional back to the basket bigs do we have anymore? I mean, a lot of guys are all stretch fives or pick and pop 4-man, so they're trying to play on the perimeter. And so with that being said, how often or how much is post entry, post feeding the post being taught anymore? And so
I just find it so funny. Like, some guards just really can't do it.
right.
Like,
Can't do it, afraid to do it because they don't work on it. And so I would think right now this would be an easy pass for Nick Fennell for 24 because he's left-handed. So a hook bounce pass into the post, fake high, show low. You can't get any better than that, I think. And so he doesn't give it. We swing it. And so now at this point, stop right there. So at this point, honestly, our continuity is messed up because what we go into normally is just your European ball screen motion.
Middleman through, cut the
Yep.
45 type
Exactly.
deal.
So right now it's going to be messed up because number one, Mike Melvin should have cut through once, Devin Palmer looked to reverse it. And that's why 22 in the corner has his hands ready because he's thinking like he's going to receive it, then he's going to get the ball screen. But now play it. He swings. Okay, so he tries to cut through, but then Devin Palmer doesn't set the ball screen. So he kind of just shallows it, goes out, and now 13 will be the ball reversal guy in the continuity, but he doesn't do his job. So now here we go. He sets the ball screen. Now CJ is looking to reject it. So basically our continuity was messed up, but we still get a decent look out of it. But to be honest with you, I think that was a really screwed up possession in my opinion.
And play after play, how do you just encourage your guys to keep going? Like you mentioned, you run a little Euro continuity. Is that just sort of your base when primary action doesn't work out? You're into Euro continuity, middleman through, cut the 45, play, try and get a read out of it. And you're just teaching them, just keep going, look for something.
Yeah, look for something. And we talk about corner turns, like in that, hey, corner turns, try to get to the nail, try to make a play. And that goes to recruiting. So, I know I'm going off into a whole different thing, but that's why we like guys who can catch, rip, turn corners, get to the nail, make a play. But we don't like the hold. We never like the hold. If you're going to make, it has to be like a 0.5 type of decision. You right. Pass it, you shoot it, you drive it. I mean, whatever you're going to do, be quick with it because now you're playing into their hands. They get the load up. But because we don't, swing it, get the ball to the other side. And I think, we could have gotten another ball reversal if we got, if we moved it quicker. But we still get a decent look. But yeah, we talk about play after the play. We don't stop. Even we go 5-on-0 in practice, and guys may mess up a screen, may mess up an action, and we just encourage them just keep playing. Just keep playing because you're not going to be able to do that in the game. You're not going to stop. You're not going to say, all right, my fault, pull it back out. Just continue to play and just figure it out.
We got one more that I liked. This was I called it wedge double elevator basically when I was looking at it. I'll let it play through, but here's the guy coming through, obviously. So, I mean, basically, we moved the ball to the offensive left side of the floor. You got pretty much everybody outside of the three-point line, except for one guy who zips up to the elbow, sets a wedge screen, brings the post player down. Don't get it. He's going through right away. This turns into a ball screen. which actually eventually becomes a double ball screen. And then those two that set the double end up setting a pinch or an elevator to the side for the shot.
Right.
So, we're 10 and a half minutes in the game. The game's a lot closer. Do you use this as an ATO as well? What are you looking for? What options? Talk me through it.
Well, the thing that we were trying to do, we're trying to get right there. We were trying to get the big man, Evan Desir, 22. They're big guys. So basically they're only big back to the basket play on their team. So we're trying to really drag him out to get him to commit to the ball, to see how he's going to guard the ball screen, and just trying to get him away from the basket. And
Right.
so right here, number 3, Ty Graves, who's coming through the elevator, we wanted to get him going. One of our better shooters. We just wanted to get him an open look. I'm not sure if he made a shot on the previous possession, but he made one. So we're trying to get him another one. But we talk about screening angles. We talk about being set. And these are turnovers for us, even though, it's a dead ball turnover. But number 25, Nahimi Kabeya, wasn't set. And so it was an offensive foul. So all we're trying to do, once again, false action. Everybody thinks we're going to go Kaiser, number 22. So it was kind of like a zipper cut action here. And so they're thinking he's coming off this ball screen and coming back out. They're jumping at it. And so it's just false action. We're just thinking, hey, we're going to the right side, but we're technically coming back to the left side. We wanted to give Ty Graves an open look to get him going, because we knew he was going to try to, he was going to be huge for us, but we have to be set on our screens and be disciplined. And so angles, being set is all key. And that comes down to our execution.
You mentioned good, bad, ugly in post-game review. Would this be a clip that would make something like that? Or would you just, hey, everybody knows that's an error, let's move on?
Yeah, that would be a bad, only because we want to show that. And we had so many illegal screens this year, especially for our bigs. And so that was kind of an ongoing thing that we needed to correct, that they needed to see about being set. And because Kabeya, number 25, he's new to our roster, I think that's, anytime there can be a teachable moment for those guys, they need to see that, about moving and how that possession could translate on the other side. Like, did they score on the next possession because of that? All that stuff matters. Like, those possessions are blown possessions that we just can't have.
For sure. This one I put in my notes, playing the cross screen concepts. Where's the breakdown in your opinion? So basically it's a swing type action. And then there's a cross screen underneath while that happens. So they've got a big up top, just scanning, surveying the floor while the cross screen happens. And it looks like temporarily you switch, and then he tries to scramble out and get back, and you give up a wide open layup on it. So talk to me about where the breakdown is, and do you typically scramble switch out of situations like this?
Well, first of all, this is a little on big cross screen, but I don't know if guys thought, we were switching 1 through 5. Let's see how much time is on it. So it's 18 seconds on the shot clock. So we're not switching 1 through 5 anyway, but this is a little on big. So our rule is here, the guy guarding the cross screen, if you go back and pause it now, Kabeya, if you just see his feet and you see how he pivots, he's going to peel out and he's going to do it just for a split second play. Boom, he would have been there. Ty Graves should have held up 25 to Sear just for a second, so make him go either high or low.
Right.
And then 25, Kabeya could peel back, but I'm not sure what he heard. I don't know if he heard stay or switch, but he was confused, tried to get back, tried to challenge him. We give him and one. So another mental break. Now, stop though. We talk about closeouts. 24, Nick Fennell, who's guarding DJ Jones on the ball, didn't close out. He didn't go high hands. He didn't do anything. So now he's almost in no man's land. Like, you're either going to be back and not allow post catch, but DJ Jones is a good mid-range shooter, 15 to 18 feet, but he should have closed out anyway. And see, he's left-handed. We were going to influence him right. Nick Fennell didn't go close out. He didn't go high hands, so there's no ball pressure. And so therefore, that's an easy look for him.
Yeah.
So that was kind of our thing. Like, we had to bring pressure to them. We kind of had to make them play with their back to the basket. but that's a pinpoint pass. Cabella tries to recover late, tries to challenge it at the rim, and then and one.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the lack of ball pressure. I mean, good passers are going to pick you apart from the
Pick you
point
apart
for sure.
every time. Every time.
And just to reiterate, going back to your concepts, my understanding is basically the breakdown is from your big here because your small should be full butt deny until he gets back. He's buying him time, so to
Buying
speak.
him time. Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
All right, we got you guys went into a bit of a matchup zone on this sideline out of bounds. Some man principles for sure in there. Talk to me a little bit about, if I'm even seeing this accurately, if you are sort of matchup zone here in that 2-3, and how you feel you played it.
Yeah. We were just trying to honestly just give them a different look. I remember doing this game, we were 2-3 in everything, baseline OB and sideline OB.
Okay.
The thing about it is, what we do is what we were trying to do. We were showing zone for the first pass, then trying to go man. And so I think there was confusion on, once again, another communication breakdown is the fact that guys weren't sure if they were supposed to match up yet or not. We were going to go off the first pass or we were going to go off the second pass. So now Cam Bowles right there, and stop right there. So this is where the breakdown happens. This goes to our principles right here. He's fighting number 22, Evans Desir. We full front on the post anyway. And so right now, this is just a foot fight. So Evans Desir for them, number 22, is looking to deep post. Number 1, Mike Melvin for us on the opposite side. If the ball is in this third of the floor, he should have 1 foot in the paint.
Right.
Or he should be loaded up with his head underneath the rim. But his concern is he has number 1 in the corner. He's guarding Jalen Spear, who's their best 3-point shooter. So his mind is thinking, I need to be there on the catch. I can't help too much. But right now, Cam Bowles, number 11 for us, is trying to fight low side, gives that up. Mike Melvin is just a little bit too late. He sees the pass, reacts too late, and you're giving Evans Desir inside look. So it's man principles. And number 11 for us didn't do his job, which was full front. He's trying to fight. Number 1 for us, he's not at the midline where he should be to make that read. He's late. And so then we give up this layup.
So I was confused as to if it was a matchup or if it was something where you were switching from zone to man. Thank you for clarifying that. And are you guys okay with fighting on the bottom side, or do you typically teach coming on the top side? Or do you not care? Get around.
we don't care, get around. And so right now, Cam needs to break contact. Like, he doesn't need to be wrestling. So what I tell guys is just take a
big man
back.
wrestling too.
Yeah, take a step back and step around, bring your right foot over the top, and now you're in proper position. You have length, and then we got weak side help, and we should be loaded up. But because he's trying to fight, it kind of puts him in a disadvantage. He's trying to fight low side. He's trying to get in there and gives that up. But when we tell our guys, if the ball is in the 1, which is the 1/3 of this floor, if the ball is in the 1, then you shouldn't be in the 2. You should be in the 2, but not the 3, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the 2 is from lane line to lane line. And then from lane line to sideline is the 3 over there. Yep. And so Mike Melvin, number 1. Yep, there you go. So everybody at this point, the ball's in the 1. You have to be either in the 1 or the 2. You can't be in the 3. And so we got 2 guys in the 3. Easy look. I don't think DJ Jones would throw that if those 2 guys were in the 2.
I like it. I got some crooked lines, but I think that helps visualization wise for anybody. My last question on it though is so we call this front and lob at this point. So if our guy here is fronting, the guy who's taking away the lob, his teaching point is bring me the guy's head or bring me the ball, one of the 2 type deal.
I like that.
You mentioned that he's guarding a really good shooter. Would you X on the weak side if what's sort of your team philosophy?
Yeah. So we would X on the weak side. So that means if the ball was skipped, then 3, who's at the elbow for us, would just go take corner shooter. Yep. And then 1 would take, there you go, 2, Cam Reeves. So we'll just, we X out of it. That's a communication deal. And even right now, even if he decides to skip to one who's spotting up in the corner, number one, Mike Melvin's quick enough to get there. Like he would get there in, 1.5 steps and be there
Wow.
on the catch.
Yeah.
That's just the type of athlete he is. But once again, our principles are, hey, balls in the one, you need to be in the two and the three. So his head should be underneath the rim right now.
Right.
If he was a bigger player, non-athletic, yeah, we'll tell him to split the lane line, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, especially if he's guarding a shooter and having to get out there.
Like it. This is a simple one. I ask it all the time. Transition threes, yay or nay on your team?
Um, right here, I think that's a good shot for for three. Like I said, one pass shot is given to certain guys on our team, but it's not really good. But what we tell if you bring it back mentally just a little bit, we tell our point guards to always get to the nail when they're pushing in transition. And Mike Melvin, number one, did exactly that. Because when you get to the nail, you're able to open up the floor, you can see things. Now, I think this may lead into your question about how many guys we send to the glass. That's the thing about it. So now, transition three, pitch back to three, shot goes up. Normally, long shots equal long rebounds.
Right.
Now, who's getting back? Well, three would have to get back because he's the deepest man back, so he can't follow if he wanted to. But now it's almost like we have four guys going to the glass. And for them, which I was saying before about jamming the basketball, we definitely have to do it now because we can't allow hitter heads and we can't allow, kickouts for, in transition. So good shot for number three. Probably one or two guys on our roster that gets the green light to do that. But typically, and our guys know it. See, I think you get in situations where guys shoot transition shots, especially threes, and then you got your teammates looking like, what the heck? So now that kind of messes up your balance, but they know Ty is a good shooter. So it kind of, changes the mentality a little bit.
What do you have to do to earn the right in order to shoot those kinds of shots? Is it are there practice charts? Are there just a large sample size throughout the season where you start to allow or disallow? Like what is the feedback? How do you get to be a green light player to be able to take that kind of shot?
It's just given by Coach Moulton. Hey, he'll let you know. Hey, I'll take that shot. Like that would be that right there would be something that Coach Moulton would say during a timeout. Like, hey, Ty, we'll take that shot from you anytime. I'll allow that anytime. And that's, emphasized in film. So this is something I would put good, bad, ugly. And it would be a good because we don't want to kill Ty's confidence and say, hey, we don't want you shooting that. Hey, that's a good shot. We want you taking it. And just to try to keep him built up. But coach will let guys know, especially in practice, he'll stop it and say, hey, that's not a good shot. Like, we don't need that from you. You're more of a catch rip guy. But Ty Graves is more of a catch and shoot. He's a three-point shooter, took more threes than he took twos. So we'll take that from him.
Love it. This was another set that I liked. It's kind of an Iverson over the top here.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a back screen that the player continues on. So try my best to describe it. Ball's in the center of the floor. I would call this like a loop series or an Iverson type deal. So you got the two that are free throw line-ish. You got an over and under happening. Enter to the left forward. And the gentleman who went over top on the Iverson cut continues along and just gets a back screen from the other forward. How many times a game will you run it? How many times a game will you get it? And, what are the counters if you don't get it?
Yeah. So we run this a lot. And the timing of it, if you can see the pace, obviously see Ty Graves is clearing out, pause. If you bring it back just when 24 catches right there. So right now, we're trying to see if 25 is going to help on the back screen. 3 is tagging CJ Kaiser on the back screen, so he's stay connected. Now, based on personnels, because 23, who's setting the back screen, is really of a pick and pop 4-man, I think DJ Jones, who's guarding him, is kind of scared to help because that could be just him stepping out after this to help, and that would have been an easy skip. Okay, but if CJ Kaiser doesn't get this, on this back screen, which we get a couple of times a game, then it would be a flare from 23 to 1. So it'll be, so right now you can see it. So 23.
I'll help you out. I got you.
Yep, you got me. Yep, right there. So he would flare for 1, and then we will skip it over the top, and then it would just honestly go into ball screen continuity.
Love it.
Yep. But we get this, but his timing of it and the change of pace and change of speed, because he can't kind of sprint off. He kind of has to stagger his steps a little bit to get the timing of it and the angle in which 23 setting the screen. We tell guys, whatever you want your teammate to get the receive the ball is where you have to set the screen. So we tell our guys, hey, put the crack of your butt, the crack of your ass to the rim.
Right.
That's exactly where you're trying to send 22. So the angle of it would have been good. If his angle had been more so ass crack to the corner,
right,
then that's where he would have been sending CJ. Then you're probably not going to get that execution.
It's interesting because the first time I watched it, when I was watching the game, right about here, I was like, oh, I know it's coming. Just because the one forward is slightly below the other forward.
Yep.
And like I see this one a lot in my conference. I'm like, yep, here we go.
Yep.
Love it. This one, my notes say drop over a single tag, miscommunication on the double side. So there's a lot going on in this one. A few different things happening all together. But I mean, basically, they put you in an action where you're forced to tag from the single side. Are you traditionally trying to tag? Are you trying to play the ball screen with only 2? I would call your coverage like a low show, probably not even a full drop type deal, and over. And then you do sort of pull in. But then the other thing that I noticed that was interesting on this clip was that both players went to the guy going to the corner, and this dude was completely wide open on the slip if he had wanted. But talk to me about what you see. Obviously, you end up fouling at the end of the clip, but without being married to the result, of course.
Okay, so first thing, excellent job by number 1, Mike Melvin, denying that wing entry. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to blow it up. We knew they were trying to get the Reeves, take that away. Now, like I said before, at the end of shot clocks, but they kind of go early, we're going to switch 1 through 5. But because our guys know, it's just habit, it's 20 seconds on the shot clock, so we're still going to, do our regular ball screen coverage. So our coverages are, if you pause it for a second, what our coverages are on the thirds of the floor. So that MEAC sign on the floor over there on the left side of the floor, we normally ice everything on that side of the floor.
Yep.
Do a flat show or drop in the middle of the floor. And then we'll do normal heads over under on this first side of the floor. So that's kind of like how we do ball screens. Now, since the ball screen is kind of in the middle of the floor, but our main thing was to try to contain Randolph, who has the ball, who's more of a driver, creator, trying to get downhill. We kind of wanted to corral it, but ball's going away from you. Number 1 should bump early on 25. And so there should have been a tag, a bump, however you want to call it. We call it bumps. He should have stood him up, forearm right there.
How high, Nigel? Where are you teaching to make contact?
Yeah, so we like to bump as high as possible. But in this case right here, only because Mike Melvin's guarding a shooter, we didn't want to bump him too low because that would have been a longer closeout for him. So we'll bump high. When I say high, that second hash mark. So right now he's kind of in between right there. So if we bump him high enough, then we go hands and we show high hands and kind of detour and make it a lob pass. And then it can kind of, Mike will still have enough time to be there on the catch. But my thing about this is Menelik, he's not even in a stance. I'm talking about number 1. So if you're not in a stance off the ball, you're not really engaged, so you can't do your job. So he would stand him up right there, bump. If there was going to be a throwback or a lift, and it's a pass to the lift guy, number 2, he could have been there on the catch and could have played the ball from there. When you're talking about this action right here on this side closest to the sideline, that could be an automatic switch. I mean, 22 and 24 switchable guys, miscommunication. We jumped out at Jai Milton, number 20, because he's a knockdown shooter. I mean, he made 4 against us down at their place. Right. So they're thinking like, hey, ball's coming off, drive and kick. MJ Randolph is getting to his right hand. He's just trying to look for Jai Milton. But Bryce Moraine, we were killed either way it went because Randolph had Bryce Moraine rolling to the rim on the right side, or he had DJ Jones catching the ball on the left side of the floor, and he's a left-handed player. So just our coverage, our physicality could have been better. And our communication here with this little, pin down should have been better because that should have been an easy switch.
So there's a few things that I'd like to ask about from everything that you've given me. First off, the first thing is different coverages for the different thirds, plus different coverages for the different time of the shot clock. And out of all of the things that were given there, ultimately you end up veer switching here, right? The big goes to the ball and the little goes to the roller.
Yep.
What is the cue or the point for that switch to happen? And whose call is it? Is it the bigs, or is it the guy fighting over top in order to say, I can't get back, pick that up?
Yeah. So obviously the call is from 32 Maxwell saying, middle. His call is, hey, bring him this way, bring him this way, bring this way. Now, because he kind of turns the corner, he gets hit and Ty gets stood up. It should have been a get back in front, but because there's no communication and it looks like Ty is on the veer back is trying to take, DJ Jones. I don't think there was any clear communication because it should have been 2 slides for Maxwell, and he really should have been really sending him more so towards the sideline. So he's kind of dropping, but it should have been really 2 slides coming towards his left side. And now that allows Ty Graves to get back in front of the ball. But because he's kind of continuing to drop, I think at that point it was just, basketball instincts. Let me just continue to stay with the ball.
Right.
We don't want him rolling, and we don't have a tagger. We don't have a bump guy over there. We'd rather not give up a layup, and I'll just stay with the basketball. But really, his slide should be 2 to the left and then get back.
And you don't typically teach the veer switch, then that's just that's an instinct that's happened.
That's an instinct thing. Yeah, that's an instinct thing.
Nigel, you mentioned previously that you're pretty good on time, but I just want to say, we're at the 90-minute mark. Obviously, we want to be respectful. This is what I had asked you for. Are you okay? Keep going. I got a few more clips in there.
Yeah, it's as long as you want to go.
Awesome. Appreciate you, sir.
Yep.
2-3 zone. This one was more of like your traditional 2-3 zone as opposed to the matchup or switching on a pass. Why the decision at this point in the game? 3 minutes left in the first half. You guys are down 2. You've been fairly successful in getting back into this. You've made a good push and actually end up with the lead. And then also, how do you feel you played throughout? So anybody listening, real typical 2-3 zone and sort of a real typical break by them. So there's a wing pass, a couple swings. There's some cut through. There's nobody at the nail, ironically. They fill on the pass back up to the top, that area, and then cut out. And on this penetration here from the top, there's a drop off to the short corner, and he ends up missing the layup.
Yeah. So this is kind of basically out of the 4-minute timeout situation. So it was just a change of a change of pace for things, just to make them think. They really only have one shooter on the floor, which is the guy with the ball right there. But like I said before, we want to take guys out of their initial action. So what they were trying to do was trying to exploit the matchup of just beating us off the bounce. And Johnny Brown, number 21 for them, who's the big kid with the dreads, who's rim running right now, is more so of a perimeter player. He's more of a stretch 4. So right now he's kind of in limbo because we have been going man, and now he's really trying to play short corner to short corner, and that's kind of putting him in a position where he's not successful. And so we just wanted to give them a different look. And so not sure how many possessions we played of that with this, but we just, out of a timeout, we wanted to switch it up. We could tell during their timeout, they made some substitution changes. They were trying to exploit what we were doing man to man, and coach just wanted to switch up the pace. We're not traditionally a zone team, so our principles in it, we're not really great, but guys just adjust on the fly and they just try to do it because Our bumps and our slides in it aren't particularly great, but because it bought time, now you're talking about 11 seconds on the shot clock. And now at this point, if we can just contain the basketball, limit them to one shot, we kind of done our job.
Like it. I think he should have gone up strong side is the only thing that I think about this.
Yeah.
That reverse as a smaller guard, I used to love when bigs would do this because I'm like, that's going into the glass.
Right.
Just so you know, like I'm gonna get that on that help. But
And I'm surprised he did it because he's a left-handed player. So I mean, he was already on that side of the floor. That could have,
yeah, it's a strong side, cut the angle, get him on your back type
there
deal.
you go. Yeah.
Said I liked first ATO of the second half, first play of the second half.
Yep.
Very nice, Munchkin. Sorry, I'm getting some math from the daughter here. I apologize.
Oh, okay. Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Father duties.
So first play of the second half here. There's the back screen and just basically the lob to the rim. You've cleared out everybody to the offensive left side of the floor.
Yep.
We get this often, counters, where you're trying to specifically get him going. Talk me through it.
Yep. So this is a set that coaches run for years. And we're trying to get the layup off of this. This is just a sprint off, back screen, trying to get the layup. If he didn't get that, if you run it back just a little bit, I'll try to talk you through it. Our main thing in timeout or halftime, I'm sorry, was our first war was going to be critical. So the 20-minute mark to the 16-minute mark of this half was going to be so critical, and we needed something to kind of jumpstart us with our execution. We needed a kind of a quick strike, and we needed to execute. So obviously, what we're trying to do is, because we had a lineup change. So now, when I said before, we started Justin Wright, the freshman, and we sat CJ Kaiser, who has the ball now. We tried to jumpstart CJ with making the play off the ball. I mean, he's a heavy scorer, leading scorer in the conference, but we kind of wanted to get something in his mind where he had to make a play without his ball in the hand. Without the ball in his hands. So back screen does a good job making this play. It kind of gets him engaged to trust his teammates. But if we didn't get that, it was going to be a quick reversal to 13 at the top. Then number 12 will just pop out right wing. It'll go into a side ball screen over here, and then it's going to flow right into the European continuity.
Love it.
Yep.
So I don't know if you guys call cross screen down screen America in America, but we call cross screen down screen America.
Yeah.
And just sort of talk me through terms of defending it, what you guys are looking for and how you want to play it, and if you always play it the same versus against certain matchups.
Yeah.
And then obviously after the cross screen down screen, so here's your cross screen, here's our down screen. We hit the guy at the point, and then they're playing almost like blind pig action on this side, where it's they enter to the elbow and it's a one-on-one backdoor. You guys actually get a little bit lucky in that he bobbles the pass and it goes out of bounds.
Yeah.
Talk to me about it, and what you see, what you would like to be better, and how you typically play the cross screen down screen.
Yeah. Okay. So pause it. So yes, we do call it America.
Nice.
Yep, we call it America. So and the thing about this, Menelik,
I got to talk to my Canadian guys. We need a Canada. Like,
you need a Canada, right?
I know an Argentina set. I know several countries.
Canada need a Canada. Yeah. We talk about this in preseason. It's obviously it's all actions that we have to defend early on without even talking opponents. Early on in the year. So we guard staggers. We guard ball screens. We guard pin downs. We guard cross screens. Little on big, big on big. But America is one of the plays we have to guard because we see it so much. So first thing is, once he catches the ball up top, you got to bring ball pressure. All right, if you reverse now, hit, doesn't allow him to catch. Okay, ball pressure there. Okay, now on the cross screen right here, we call this and we pre-switch it. So what's going to happen is there's a switch, and we can switch this right here because we can switch 32 and 5 because they're kind of like positions. They're both, big guys. We can switch that.
Right.
So they're coming off. But because we don't really we weren't really prepared for it. I mean, I think the guys were talking it out, but we, this wasn't a set that we had seen before, but it doesn't matter. You see the action happen. They can switch that cross screen. So now we get a switch here. And so now on this pin down, what's going to happen is what we'd like to do is pre-switch. We're going to take pause. I'm trying to see who the weak side guard is, but whoever the weak side guard is over there for us is just going to take that. He's going to kind of jump out there and take that. And now 5 would have ended up taking that weak side guard. So we kind of pre-switch it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ty Graves should have saw the pin down happening. He could have jumped out and took 3, and then 5, who's guarding the ball, wouldn't have to fight through that pin down. He would have just stayed there, and he would have took number 1, Jalen Spear, on that opposite right wing.
Kind of allows him to stay and help too, and flood up that.
That's the whole thing. Yep.
Yeah.
You want him to stay and help. Yep.
Right.
But I think we try to do a good job. We don't want elbow catches, but once again, we talk about where the ball is. And so if the ball is in the 3 right here, your help, you shouldn't be in the, yep. And so now I would think 3 should be a little bit, 3 who's on the opposite wing for us should be, lane line, yeah, or head underneath the rim because of where the ball is in relation to where his man is. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. I got a question from earlier in the set, and it's on the closeout just before the cross screen down screen.
Mm-hmm.
I found it very interesting. So I found it like he's denying,
Yep.
and then he switches to force middle.
Yeah.
So talk me through your concepts there a little bit, because I think for a lot of teams that would be contrary to what they would be doing typically, and it would create it a little bit more, the degree of difficulty would be a little bit higher for your player, having to deny on one side, then get to the other side and force back middle. So sort of talk me through the principles that you guys are teaching there as to why you're forcing middle on this wide left slot.
Yeah. So what the adjustment, when we talk about making game-to-game adjustments, what the adjustment we made that morning of this game was that Cam Reeves with the ball was probably not as effective going to his right hand as he was to his left. So our closeouts for him changed from the three previous games. So just looking at clips, we didn't want him to get a wing catch initially to catch it. So so he was denying that. But now he's right with a Curry.
Right.
So now on ball, Mike Melvin is doing exactly what we told him going through closeouts that morning. He's influencing right. Cam Bowles, number 11, is wide, and we just want to, show loaded up. We want to show a crowded floor. So he's in a stance right there, so it couldn't be a direct line drive. Right. And we're not giving direct line drives. Like, we're not allowing him. We don't want him to kind of get the ball. We talk about this. We don't like the ball to be driven from the 3 to the 2, or we don't want him driving that from a 3 to a 1. So he can't get a corner turn, but we're influencing to that right hand. Mike Melvin's quick enough to take a big step and cut him off, and then just wall up on the pickup. So he's doing exactly what we told him. Now, typically the games before that, stance would change. His left foot would be up. He's going to keep him on the left side of the floor, and he's kind of influencing baseline, sideline. But because we changed his closeout, that's why his stance is that way.
I'm just going to give myself a little fist pump to finding a clip that actually, pulls out what we were talking about before. Yay.
Yes, sir. Yep, there you go.
This one is a tough action to guard. This is pretty late game, so we're under 4 in the second half. You guys are up 5. And everybody's above free throw line. You get sort of that UCLA cut that happens, and then here, like I would say that it's a shuffle and then a handoff, but really it creates like a scissor action over this elbow. So you get that first guy going through, second guy going downhill. You guys actually allow the layup. I guess this particular player doesn't want to foul at this point, but talk me through that action. Do you have it? How do you want to play it? It's a unique one, I would say.
And it's really good. I was looking at this last night. First thing would be, we don't want to allow wing catch. So the first thing, Devin Palmer wasn't really in a stance. So we're trying to take away wing catch. He didn't do it. Stop. We talk about closeouts. So he didn't go high hands. He didn't close, and he's guarding probably the best shooter on the floor.
Right.
And he's left with a Curry. So right now,
He's
going
on the
back
wrong side. Yeah.
wrong side, left foot should be up. We shouldn't allow. Then we don't allow elbow catches. So right now it should be ball you man anyway. Maxwell didn't do that. He allowed an elbow catch. This little scissor action right here, this could be talk, and that could be an easy switch, which it was. But Devin Palmer at that point, I think he had 3 fouls. That's why he was backing it. But you see, as he jumped more so toward the lane line, he wasn't thinking switch. He was kind of staying with one and was kind of late. And now at that point, gave up a layup to an aggressive driver.
Yeah, I like that action. Don't be surprised if you see it in Fleming's playbook at some point. But I think it's one that's a little bit tricky to guard for sure.
Yep.
This one I just felt was kind of a key possession. You're up 3, you have the ball. It's 3 minutes left in the game, so to speak, 3:30. And then there's a double slip action that happens when the ball gets to the left side of the floor. Yep. So we go right side, swing back, first slip, second slip, and now we're just playing. We get the corner 3 up fake and the drive out of it. So, talk to me about the action. What are you looking for? Does it go exactly the way you draw it up? And are the slips just reads?
Yeah. The slips were incorporated when we knew they were switching 1 through 5. And so we kind of, we call them sevens, kind of 7 the screen, slip the screen.
Yeah.
And so we're just trying to see right there, kind of stay, but he doesn't really sell the 7, but he wasn't really, that was kind of a ghost or bluff. That was, fluff action. It was going to be this one with 24 that we were really trying to get. And now right there, you get 2 kind of committed to the ball. Now it's a late close, shot fake, drive. So now this is just playing basketball. So now shot fake, drive it. Nick Fennell makes a big play for us. So we're just trying to see how guys are guarding screens, if they're going to hard hedge it, and then we can slip it. And so we're just trying to see what the coverage was. So, off that first one, he wasn't really aggressive on the 7, but it was going to be that second one that we were really trying to get.
Right. I had one more question just about your help side on the penetration. I noticed your 2 that are spread, what I would call your drift or your corner, and your slot just above the wing there. You cut, or he chooses to cut from the corner. Do you guys have any sort of philosophy as to like burning your worst shooter, or allowing them to cut when they want, or reading the defender's head? How is that choice sort of made on the help side?
Yeah, so I've been hearing this a lot about the 45 cut or the corner cut. That was really just going to be a baseline drive, baseline drift. But I think Devin Palmer is one of our better offensive rebounders. So I think he was initially thinking that was going to be a catch and shoot. So I think he was thinking shot right there. But he's one of our better 3-point shooters. We just try to give guys windows and angles, but so he should have, he could have stayed corner, and that could have been a quick swing, especially if he would have went, baseline drive to 5. It could have been a quick swing to, Jordan Perkins with number 12, and then he could have got a paint touch. So now we could have just played basketball and kept them in rotation. So, but I think 5 was just automatically thinking offensive glass, let me go get a rebound. And so that was his thought process. So there's really no rule.
You just kind of empower your guys, so to speak, to make what they think is the right choice there.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Love it. And I mean, the last 2 clips, you can't really watch this game.
I hate looking at these 2.
Got to get your heart rate up a little bit and an eye twitch going, but you can't watch this game without talking about these 2 big threes, right? So we're 12.2 left. You guys are up 5.
Right.
And I believe it's Jalen is his name on their team, comes down, right slot, offensive right slot, just makes a massive shot. 7.4. They foul you. They put you on the free throw line. And then the very next one, he's coming right back down. And if I'm not mistaken, same guy comes off the handoff and just ices another one. And it's probably a bit too far out of reach between among the two different threes there, but talk to me. I actually think I have them out of order. I apologize. Let me
Are you
flip.
good? Yeah.
But I mean, on both of these,
Yeah.
are you sweating bullets? What are you telling your guys? Are you like, how are you keeping your composure? All of that.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is we didn't want to foul. So if you go back to the first one, um, well, not that one. I'm sorry.
I just changed the order.
Yeah,
So
yeah, 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 this one. So what we were telling Jordan Perkins, obviously we don't want any fouls, but what he allowed Jalen Spear to do was get the ball to his right hand.
right.
So we wanted to keep him on the left side of the floor, but because he caught it in momentum going to the right side of the floor, we just didn't want Perkins to foul him. We just wanted to contest. I mean, that's a tough shot,
Yeah.
from a shooter, hand in the face. We just didn't want to foul at that point. So those are two big threes. But main thing at this point of the game, slowing the ball up, but not giving up, anything disadvantage wise or advantage for them. But we should have forced him to his left hand. Now that'd have been a little bit more difficult. But because his momentum is going to his right, we're kind of retreating. This is a good contest for where he is. I mean, he's at the volleyball line almost.
Right.
That's just a big
I mean,
shot.
that's a heck of a shot. You pat the
Yeah.
guy on the back ultimately.
Right.
Um, do you teach anything? So, like, I'm noticing here, I just was recently in a seminar taught by Jimmy, who's in the call, about closeouts.
Yeah.
And do you teach anything about strong hand to strong hand? So, like, is he closing out across his body? Is that wrong for you guys? Do you not care as long as the level of contest is high?
Yeah.
What are you guys teaching in terms of hand and ball and what side it should be coming from?
I mean, so we're talking, he's on the right side of the floor. So it's all about influence in any ways to close out. So, shoot, I mean, sideline corner, right foot up, contested. We're not trying to go across the face. We just don't want to foul jump shooters. We talk about you only leave the floor when they leave the floor on the
Right.
contest. But we talk about never bringing your hands further than your nose. So there's no late foul or
Right.
foul on the elbow. Um, and just the verticality rule. So we don't want to foul a jump shooter. We'll leave the floor when he leaves the floor. But, Perkins is doing the best job on that side that he is. I mean, because he's keeping him on that side. If you can see that right foot probably would have been up. So you can't do any better job than that. But just on closeouts, we don't foul jump shooters. We only leave the floor when they leave the floor. Choppy feet, high hands, and mirror the basketball. So, even if he's a right-handed shooter, that's just a tough that's just a tough
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah. One of those ones that has you sweating on the side. Like, we did everything right. What's going on? Don't make that.
Absolutely.
I mean, in terms of film, it's all I've got.
Yep.
I want to say, big thank you. As I mentioned prior to the call, like, we're pretty locked down up here, so this show has sort of been my saving grace. But I've really enjoyed, chopping it up with you. Yeah, I agree, Jimmy. Great job, Nigel. You, like, absolute command and
I appreciate that.
absolutely know your stuff for sure, without a doubt. But as I was saying, I want to say, thank you for taking the time. This 90 minutes means a lot to me. Really, really appreciate it. Hopefully, maybe influence the way you think about something, or brought something up that you want to work on, or just something that is in there that was like, haven't thought of that for a while.
Yep.
Thanks, Doobie. Appreciate you too, sir.
Yep.
And for all the coaches that jump on the call, I know some have filtered in, filtered out, etc. I really appreciate you guys. I really appreciate the relationships that this show has fostered, and the communication that has developed through it. I just literally right now mentioned a closeout call that I was in recently, and it's really changed the way I think about certain things. So yeah, I'm going back to the drawing board and reevaluating about certain things of what I want to do. I just love it. I love talking the game. I know this is niche for certain people, but thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and this has been awesome.
Yeah, man, look, I appreciate you, what you do for the game, for these coaches. Continue to grow the game, continue to share it, especially during this time. And I know this is therapeutic for you. And when you're able to get back in the gym with your players, I know you'll be ready. So I just appreciate you giving me this platform and the opportunity, all the coaches that have been on. This is great stuff. I got to go back and I got to watch a lot of these. It's been so many good ones, especially with Jimmy. and Trey, seeing theirs, this is good stuff. I love talking the game. I love, the coaching fraternity. I mean, this is just an elite fraternity, and we got to continue to help each other, and we got to continue to share, continue to grow, continue to help one another. So everyone to continue to be safe. Tell your loved ones that you love them. Don't take for granted those opportunities, especially with this Terrence Clark situation. I mean, you just never know the hour, never know the day.
For
So
sure.
all you guys be blessed, man.
Appreciate.
Yeah,
I'm going to stop the recording there. Nigel, sometimes coaches like to shoot the breeze for a little bit afterwards, so please feel free.
absolutely.
Don't feel obliged. But to anybody who's listening, appreciate you guys. Tune in next week as we will continue to run it back. This has been awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate it.